Welcome back. And now, in an Oval Office meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, US President Donald Trump again pitched his idea to redevelop the quote-unquote incredible piece of important real estate that is the Gaza Strip into what he termed a freedom zone. Now, Netanyahu then denied that Israel is the one keeping Palestinians locked in the besieged enclave. Now, this happens as Israel reneged on a ceasefire deal that was signed in January and has maintained its current genocide in Gaza. Joining me now, I'd like to welcome Zeenat Adam, who is the Deputy Executive Director for the Afro-Middle East Centre. Zeenat, always a pleasure having you on. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for having me on air.
Zeenat, this is the second time this discussion with regards to creating what Donald Trump says a real estate within Gaza. It seems this obsession of really ethnically cleansing the people of Gaza is something he's hell-bent on doing from his part.
I think that what we're looking at is Netanyahu has certainly played his cards very well with Trump coming into office, and he's put forward this idea of the area being a fantastic place for real estate and a plan for development without giving any due consideration to the native people of the land. And he's done that knowing that Trump is a real estate mogul. So thinking that this is exactly what Trump would want to hear. And Trump is playing to his tune in this case. By the denial that they are not the ones who are besieging Gaza and that Palestinians are able to freely go in and out. It's an absolute lie. I mean, all of us have seen over the last 17 months what Gaza has turned into under the extreme bombardment by Israel. And this is completely supported by the United States, both from the Biden administration as well as in the Trump administration, in terms of the support for the Israelis and definitely in terms of the military support. Now, in the last 35 days, we've had a complete shut-off of any humanitarian aid coming in and out of Gaza, any food or any substantial aid that is necessary. Various humanitarian organizations, internationally recognized, have come through saying that the situation is dire, people are being starved to death, and then they are being bombarded on a constant basis. Today, I think that the number is 84 people already. We saw the burning of journalists. We saw the decapitation of children. We saw people flying into the air as a result of the intensity of the bombings. And what we're hearing from Palestinians on the ground is that there is a new weaponry that is seemingly being used this time. And we know that the Israelis are known for marketing battle-tested weapons to the rest of the world and to sell that to them. And where is this battle-tested? Only in Gaza against Palestinian people, in line with their idea of ethnically cleansing all Palestinians of this land, razing it to the ground and turning it into a beach resort.
Zeenat, and then Netanyahu says he's not the one keeping Palestinians locked in. And of course, this comes the narrative of this did not start on October the 7th. Gaza, for decades, has been kept in this locked zone. Gaza has been, for these decades, been denied all the humanitarian aid that it needed to be. It's been denied every single human rights as per the Charter of the United Nations. Everything's been controlled by Israel. And you just feel that this manipulation of words, these lies from Netanyahu, sooner or later, and not just people who know exactly the history of Palestine and Gaza, but those who are starting to see the depths of the lies within what Israel is perpetrating, it's going to be exposed sooner or later.
It's been exposed for us. The question is that the leadership in the region are not really doing anything about it, and we're not seeing any momentum and any truth coming forward, and the Palestinians are being left to themselves to try and defend themselves. we know the history of Gaza. We know that this started with white supremacist occupation of Palestinian lands. We know that 700,000 people were displaced and many of them pushed into the Gaza enclave in 1948. We know that several hundreds of villages were razed to the ground. And this is happening repeatedly over a period of history. And now we're coming to a head where absolutely everything is being destroyed. And the excuse used for that is the hostages. Now, earlier this week, we saw that the two hostages had released a video, or the video was obviously released by Hamas, indicating that these two hostages have been hurt in the bombing and that Hamas is not going to be moving them to areas of safety. As long as Israel is bombing, they are putting these hostages at risk. What's concurrently happening, and that is not very much reported in the news, is that there is a mass rally that has been ongoing for 17 months in Tel Aviv against the Israeli government for being far too right-wing and for not bringing home the hostages. Another thing that has happened is that those hostages who have been released have also not been given airtime to be able to tell their stories because it is too positive in speaking about their hostage takers. So it would shift the narrative for Netanyahu. But one thing that came across very interestingly for me in the meeting yesterday between Trump and Netanyahu was Trump's gushing about Erdogan. And the uncomfortable position that Netanyahu seemed to have when that discussion was taking place. We know that Netanyahu has been bombing into Syria quite drastically in the last few weeks, and that this is not just in response to the new Syrian administration, but it's also trying to send a message and an indication to Erdogan that he shouldn't be pushing forward in support of the Palestinians. Now, today, Erdogan came in with a statement just a little while ago, I think probably piggybacking on what Trump had said in the meeting yesterday, and indicating very strongly that Turkey stands with the Palestinian people and will not allow Netanyahu to redraw the map of the Middle East in favor of what Israel wants to do, and that is annexation and expansion of the Israeli territory.
Zeenat, let's move to another meeting that took place just yesterday. This was the one between the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, French President Emmanuel Macron, and the Jordanian King Abdullah II. Now, what we're hearing from Egypt and Jordan is the Palestinians must remain in their homeland and they need to determine their own future. And then you've got Emmanuel Macron saying, well, Hamas should not be allowed to have any governance within the territory of Gaza. And it just felt that here's another Western leader who himself is under pressure from his own government telling another territory how to run theirs. A lot of the criticism towards Egypt and Jordan has been their lack of really trying to push Western leaders to hold Israel more accountable. But Zeenat, I think both you and I know we're supposedly clutching on straws, asking, especially Egypt, for there to be them asking Israel to be held accountable. This is something really of a pie in the sky situation.
So the idea from the Egyptian and Jordanian side is to try and put forward an alternative to the complete eradication of Palestinians from Gaza and the plan that Trump has for real estate development. Their plan then is to say that Palestinians shouldn't be forced to leave and shouldn't be ethnically cleansed. Mainly, and this is from the very outset, I remember doing an interview on the 8th of October, and this was a question posed to me, why will Jordan and Egypt not receive Palestinians and house them? So they've stood their ground from the very start, that they will not be the enclaves for the Palestinians to be relocated. And that contradicts completely what Trump was saying in his meeting yesterday. The idea of Macron coming in, once again, it's a Western leader, as you've said. And why do the Arabs need to have this kind of alliances to almost justify what their own positioning is? There was an analyst who drew an analogy that Sisi is trying very hard to be the Mubarak to the Chirac, as it was. They had a very good relationship between Egypt and France at that stage. And this one doesn't quite follow as well as you would want it to. But both of these countries are under increasing pressure from their own populations, who are not only in support of the Palestinians and of people in Gaza, they are also calling for war and calling for a jihad, particularly after some ulama have come out stating that now is the time for people to mobilize. Now, the Al-Azhar University and ulama have come out yesterday or today in support of Sisi, saying that only leaders in positions of political power can make a decision like that, and so do not heed the call for jihad. But this is indicative of the extreme pressure within their own countries and the need to try and come up with a solution that is palatable for everyone. The idea, however, of saying that Hamas cannot play any governance role, this is contradictory to democratic principles and is taking away the voice of Palestinians who had already voted for Hamas. But it also is something about giving the Palestinian Authority greater authority over the area of Gaza. And we know that the Palestinian Authority is actually just a client of the Israelis and perpetrates and carries out whatever they request of them. And so that seems to be the convenient way out. In the mediation that Qatar and Egypt were negotiating over the last few months, Hamas did indicate that they would be willing to step back and allow for a different governance structure in Gaza. This was rejected by the Israelis, and this was one of the points that led to the breakdown of the ceasefire.
As you say, Zeenat, if it was in the court of public opinion for Palestinians, they would not have the Palestinian Authority running the entire region. Zeenat, always a pleasure having you on. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That's Zeenat Adam, who is the Deputy Executive Director for the Afro-Middle East Centre. So up next, if you have private security within your homes or private security across various places in the country, there is a Firearms Controls Amendment Bill that may curb any powers that are given to private security. I'll be chatting to Yasin Teba from Vision Tactical up next to have a discussion with regards to this bill. Do stay tuned.